and even better is Mr. is Patton Oswalt.
Yeah.
Which is even better.
Also,
I love that.
So, and I want to talk about Mr. because
we should
I think
edit in
even
beeps every time we say his name.
Sure, yeah.
That'd be great.
I will. All right. Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to talk about Sorry to Bother You. Before we dive into it, though, I do want to say, if you haven't seen this movie, you should leave this video.
Please go watch it, dude.
Like, I think that this is more than any other movie we've watched since we started the podcast. This is the one where you need to go in as blind as possible.
Yeah.
It was funny. Like, this is not a spoiler, but when Alex and I last night were talking, he was about halfway done the movie, and we were and I had already seen the movie once before, and he was about halfway done, and we were trying to decide on. He wanted to decide on a theme, and I was like, I think we need to wait for you to finish the movie because I was like trying so hard not to spoil the movie because I'm like, you haven't seen the movie yet. Like
hold
you've
up,
only
dude.
seen half.
Yeah,
you haven't seen it. So for you, our viewers and our listeners, if you haven't seen the movie, I really think you need to go watch the movie before you watch this episode. If you want, go watch go watch our Malcolm X episode or our why am I spacing on the first? Sinners. Go watch Sinners.
Malcolm X.
Like I mean, there will be some spoilers potentially in those, but it's just not the same. Like this movie, you need to see. All right. So that's all I'm going to say about that, and then we're going to dive right in. Now that you made it to this point, this is your last warning. We're going to start diving in. Our topic, the movie is Sorry to Bother You. Our focus for it is forgetting how you worded it. It was basically it's a use of let me see, production design as ideology. So production design and ideology are like very, very closely linked in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I will say it is not, if you're looking for, like some people like, oh, I don't like a movie that hits you over the head with the message. I really want something subtle. It's not subtle. I don't think it really beats you over the head. I think it's like it manages that, like, it's closer to the hitting you over the head, but it's not like so. But it also makes sense to do at that intensity, that level. When you talk about, there's been a lot of talk about ideology in movies in the last 6 weeks of, people being like, oh, the empire was justified in destroying, and people not seeing the correlation between fiction and the reality in which it's an allegory for it.
Yeah.
This movie is not that. If you watch this movie and don't get the point, you're not watching this movie, or I actually don't.
Yeah. And I in our last 2 episodes, I did talk about how I'm not an ideal person to speak on or to give breakdowns of films that are very much about the Black experience. I feel I can speak eloquently on this film and do it in a way that is charitable to Black audiences, white audiences, men, women, doesn't matter, because this film, for the ideology portion, this film wasn't aggressive with it. But it wasn't white guy bad. It was bad as bad. Capitalism bad. Greed bad. Like that's really what it's about. And that specifically, it does touch the Black experience, but it transcends those to the point that I feel I can speak on it. And so far, this has been my favorite film for me to talk about because I have so much
Yeah.
I can say about it.
You're right. And so I looked at it as this movie it has two ideologies that are very closely linked. The first ideology being like it's anti-capitalist.
Yeah.
And it is pretty quickly established that it's anti-capitalist,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also showing us, like how cyclical capitalism is. And it, in that process, it's showing us that, like exploitation
Yeah.
and Boots Riley, the director, is a black person. There's a focus on the exploitation of black people. Not that it's exclusive, but it's more
Yeah.
specific. But also like that is, when we think about capitalism in a modern context a lot of times, and you don't think about the fact that like slavery was capitalism, and
Yeah.
so like this bridges a lot of that gap as well for me.
It
and
does.
and and that's what I say when I mean it's cyclical, because it kind of comes back around to that. We have, there's meta commentaries on,
Oh, yeah.
the fact that two of the main guys that we see dealing with the selling of slaves are
But it's
black
worry
people.
free.
It's worry free, yeah. And it's, so we'll give you a quick well, you've already seen the movie. If you're
You're
here,
here.
you've seen the movie. I'm warning you.
So my pre-production.
So we're not going to do a sum up.
No, my pre-production hits are definitely. I'm going to shout out to Jason Kivarsday, J. Otto Siebold, and Deidre Govan. So production design was done by Kivarsday, and the film, it leans hard into like that bright and absurd. There were often times where when I was watching this, I remember Idiocracy because of how like blatantly bright and stupid the villain is made to look like, but there's never
Yeah.
really a moment that the rest looks dark. The whole thing's really bold. Graphic lettering and typography is a big part of this as well for pre-production, and that's J. Otto Siebold. And then, as always, I am in costume. Costume design is Deidre Govan, and her work often kind of argues with the sets. Like it doesn't really blend in that well. And it's meant to have characters stand hard against their backgrounds. For example, Detroit's earrings. Perfect example of
Yes.
like, because a lot of times your earrings, only one time I remember them being like a piece of iconography. It was almost always text. And it was in
Yeah.
a very like specific intentional font. And I sent a
Right.
couple of stills to my sister-in-law, who is a graphic designer at Lenovo, and she's looking at some of this and said, "Oh, that says a lot." And then I saw the font.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that one of the things that that stand out for me, I'm sorry, I'm looking at IMDb, checking out the people you're talking about.
I'm over here with my notes, making sure to read them.
One of the things that I think stands out when you talk about production design, but it reflects story and that ideology is the juxtaposition and the discordance.
Yeah.
Of, you have like, so the big thing being like, if you watch the trailer, which I watched the trailer, that's what made me want to watch the movie in the first place 5 years ago, whatever it was that I saw it. It's a guy who the trailer is just, it's Lakeith Stanfield, who is amazing in everything. I love Lakeith Stanfield.
Yes.
He is a telemarketer and he goes to work, and Danny Glover is the guy at the cubicle next to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "You got to use your white voice." And then his white voice is David Cross, who people may know best as he's not a Bluth. What is he on that show? Tobias Funke on Arrested Development. So like they didn't pick like a normal white person voice. They picked like, well, hello there. Like it is
nearly hello
essentially
fellow
that.
kids. Like
Yes. Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is nearly the hello fellow kids, and even better is Mr. is Patton Oswalt.
Yeah.
Which it's
Yep.
even better.
Also,
I love that.
So, and I want to talk about Mr. because
We
because
should
I think
edit in
even
beeps
the
every time we say his name.
sure, yeah,
That'd be great.
I will. But I think that like so you have this that immediately is it's not you mentioned code switching.
It feels
and there is a
avant-garde
level
before you've even started watching the film.
It's
oh god.
Instead of typical code switching, which for our white audience, if you're not aware, that is when people it seems to be specifically, it's not specifically black people, but it's any group tries to sound and represent in the way of the majority that will be beneficial. So like if you're a black person in an office full of predominantly white people, you may try to talk less like you would at home and more like everyone else around you. So
More
that's
like
code
Carlton.
switching. And yeah, and so you would code switching being a big theme, but also like it's hyper exaggerated. And that's what everything is, hyper exaggerated, and we're set up early for it, so that when we get real bizarre, it's like, well, we know, like you and I both watched Begonia. We're going to talk about Begonia on our Best Picture episode, but we both watched Begonia, and Begonia was weird, but there wasn't as much warning that it was gonna be the weird it was, right?
It was final act. Here's your weird, just slapped me down. Whereas this kind of built up
by
to
the
it.
time we get to the bizarre in this, I really think that we had it's not like that came out of nowhere.
Yeah,
like,
it didn't feel like that. There were moments that did, but overall, there's like a nice build up to the peak of the story that Cassius Green experiences. That obviously has and you didn't feel what happened.
Well,
you felt it coming.
And there's a surrealism throughout, and like those voices. One of the things that stood out in this time that I don't think I caught the first time as quickly was when they're showing the ads for Worry Free.
Mm-hmm.
Worry Free is this company that allows you to sign a lifetime contract to work for them, and they will house and feed you. So it's essentially
labor camp.
I mean, you're signing up for it, but it's essentially slavery. And you don't have like the out. So it, like, for all intents and purposes, it's like slightly different than the slavery we're used to in our American history. But it's, but when they show it, that first ad, and they're like showing the look, you'll have your own bed and your own place.
It's a prison cell.
That's a converted prison.
It is a converted prison cell. Yeah.
It's a decorated
bunk
prison
beds
cell.
And everything.
And I'm like, which is its own metaphor, being, if you know the history, that like our prison system as it is now was set up in response to the 13th Amendment, where we abolished slavery, but we did it in such a way that like prisoners are allowed to be used as a workforce. And so therefore we incentivized this prison industrial complex. And also, just in case you're here and you're like, I didn't know this was going to get political. Last week was Malcolm X. There's no way to get through these movies without getting political.
No.
So yeah, I want to that I think is like, it sets us up for, and there's that you're right about the visuals with her earrings and there's so many things. So I think we get set up into this world of like, don't be surprised. Like, you're gonna be, but don't be. Like, we're gonna jar you, but like, we gave you a heads up.
Yeah.
It's essentially like I think we talked about it when we talked about pop scares at one point, where like a good jump scare, pop scare will, it's coming, but it'll still surprise you because you don't know exactly when or in what way. And that can help you on rewatch be like, you can especially if there's like a bunch of fake out pop scares. This movie is not doing it with pop scares, but with doing it with surprise, where it's like, look, there's going to be some, you don't know what the weirdness is going to be, but it's getting
Yeah,
weirder.
and the example that I gave just earlier, what was, I knew it was coming, but I didn't know what it was going to be. Was when
Oh yeah,
no,
there's no way on earth anybody guesses the end of this movie.
like when he goes to talk to Steve Lift, Army Hammer's character, and like I expected something was going to happen. It did obviously feel like Get Out. Interesting. Lakeith Stanfield was in Get Out, and it was
around the same year too, I think.
Yeah, it was like a year before or something like that. So that, like, the jump scare, I knew something crazy was going to happen. What specifically was the piece that I had no like trajectory for? And that's what made it a good scare. That's what made it a good jump. Is, oh, wait, what the fuck? Reverse it a little. Nope. That's what I'm seeing. Okay. All right. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's. The movie is very clearly showing us this idea of capitalism being degrading and turning us on each other, and you know, building up these, you know, as soon as they organize a what do they call it? A work freeze? I forget what the wording is. Where, you know, they don't walk out, but they just stop working for 10 minutes or 20 minutes.
It's just a work stoppage, I guess. Phones down.
Yeah, work stoppage.
Phones down.
Yeah. So they organize that, and when they when that's going on, like Keith Stanfield's character, Cash is Green. That's his name, Cassius Green. But when they stop the work outage, the bosses come and they're like, "You're getting promoted," and basically like, "We don't want you tainted by this." And so then we see in the next scene, or he's like, "I support you guys from the sideline because I'm going up and I get my thing to do."
Yep.
And that's like, you know, the anti-labor kind of movement.
Mm-hmm.
And so we see that, and then, you know, and so that like kind of starts off as like normal metaphor. Then we're introduced to Mr. and Mr. I think is a really interesting addition to the movie, because for a couple of reasons. One is Mr. is the head of the, what is it, the premier
Power Callers.
The Power Callers. He's the head of the Power Callers, and he's a black guy. I
love the fucking tweaked out like former prison inmate with the anarchy tattoo on his neck that was always like,
oh yeah,
but he was fucking fantastic.
So Mr. is, you know, is as soon as Cash gets off the elevator, he goes, you know, he's like, "Good morning," and he goes, and we are introduced to Mr. and he's like, "White voices at all times up here," and you know, it's Patton Oswalt's voice, and so then they're in white voice the whole time, and you know, like, and they're doing, you know, and basically very quickly we're realizing that, you know, it's openly admitted that it's slavery. We're selling slaves. Like they're like, yeah, no,
and when Cassius figures it out, he says, "You're a quick one."
So
yeah, he's like, so we're selling slavery. I like you, Cassius. You're a quick one. Like, he's just...
And I think that the choice to make his name Mr.
it's so intentional. Like, I love that. It's subtlety with a shovel, just right in your face. I love it.
Yeah, just kind of like this is like, I mean, intentionally making it a black guy also like is like this idea that like nobody's free from the capitalistic like greed mentality, no like one group or whatever, but also on top of that, calling him Mr. is like, this could be anybody. Like, this is
Yeah.
literally could be any person.
And the costuming for Omari Hardwick, who plays Mr. is like so over the top pimp slash hustler slash like obnoxious Italian cousin at your wedding. Like I don't know
Yeah.
how many other ways to like give an adjective to how this guy looks, but he has like the tight brimmed bowler hat with like the feather in it and shit. It looks wild. And giving him the most nondescript name was so intentional by Boots Riley to just make it obvious that he's that important, but it doesn't matter who he is. He's that big a
Right.
deal, but his actual identity is meaningless in what he is to this film, which symbolism, I enjoyed it.
Also, I'm looking through the pictures on IMDb, and there's a picture of Boots Riley directing, and he's got a stormtrooper shirt on that says "Your Empire needs you." It's so yeah, you're right about like the intentionalness of it. I also think when we, so we go from there fairly quickly. Cash is moving on, moving up through the and then we, he's gets invited to this big party at Steve Lift's house, and when they get to Steve Lift's house,
wide shut.
Oh no! Kind of.
No,
but
eyes wide shut, son. Well, okay, the second half.
Somewhat.
When he tells Cassius to rap.
Oh yeah, so I want to get there.
Sorry,
so first of all, he goes to this house, and I think that this was intentional. That house looks like the White House.
Yeah, no, it looks like a compound. It straight looks like a compound.
But I specifically, even like the shape of the like portico in the front, like it looks like the White House.
I can see that. Yeah.
And which I think was its own comment. We get into the party, and yeah, like and he's like,
introduces him, and he goes, no,
right, Mr.
No, he's okay.
Him,
he's
and
okay.
They're in white voice.
Yep.
They're both in white voice, and Mr. introduces him. Steve Lift is holding court, and he goes, "You tell us some stories of." He's like, "Turn off your white voice," and like that's like he's given permission by the white people to perform his blackness.
You ever murdered anybody?
And he's like,
no.
You ever like bust a cap, and like because he doesn't say murder.
Sorry, he does say bust a cap.
Condescending, like white people trying to like connect, condescendingly lingo, and says, "You ever bust a cap in anybody?" And then he's like, "Rap for us. You could rap, right?"
No.
And he's like, "No." And then like he's struggling. Like they make him rap. He's struggling to rap, and finally, I will not be saying it. You will not be saying it. We'll
insert a clip with the subtitles. We'll do that for you.
No, we won't. No, we won't.
You're not even going to do that?
No. You just start saying N-word shit, N-word shit, N-word, N-word, N-word shit. And the white crowd starts yelling
nuts,
it back at him.
Oh, God, it's so bad.
And so you and then there's this like moment of like just complete defeat on Cassius's face, and it's the only time in the entire movie that Omari Hardwick uses his real voice.
Oh yeah,
and is not dubbed over, and he comes over and he goes, "Go down there and do what's needed to be done. No crying. This is basically like perform. This is like go it's you can't control it, so you gotta harness it essentially. Mm-hmm. Like we're not in charge, but we can make the most of this for ourselves. Go do that." And so he go, and it's not the last we see of his character, but it's the last we see him talking, I think.
Yeah, he might have been yelling when they're crossing the picket line, but not. You see him, but it's not any other times in the future.
Right. And then he goes down to the office after this weird tunnel basement where there seems to be like a never-ending hallway of doors.
All with weird, very close to each other colors.
Yeah.
That's aqua. That's teal.
That's clearly olive.
That's clearly an olive door pointing with his pistol.
Yeah. And that's where we, at first he's like, Lift is going to let him in on everything. And then all of a sudden he has to pee. So he goes and pees and goes in the wrong door to pee and finds the Equa Sapiens, which are horse people. They've figured out a way of turning people into horse people to make them stronger,
more durable.
And that part isn't even subtle.
Stronger, more durable,
because,
like more. What's the other word they use?
Yeah,
agreeable or whatever. Yeah,
right. They're complacent.
That's it. Yep.
Yeah. So we, that part's that, and quickly he's like, no, you got to watch the video. You'll understand once you watch the video.
That looked that video looked like a robot chicken. Fucking who robot chicken, and then who's the comedy duo that made the absolute wild weird stuff? Tim and Eric. It looked like a robot chicken and Tim and Eric script. Like, it's so bad.
Yeah. Well, it was also like Michelle Dongri instead of Michelle Gondry, which I thought was, I'm like, is that a call out for him or just a random, and we see this, and it just basically says like, we're turning people into these horse people so that they're stronger for us. And he's like, and Cash is like, so you're just converting your slaves into these monsters? And he goes, yeah, right. Like, and he's like,
no, finish watching the video. It's important. No, I didn't want you to see that. Yeah. If you had watched it first, you wouldn't. I like how he thinks that if Cassius saw that, he'd somehow be less weirded out by the giant horse person with his dick swing. Oh, the horse dick is gratuitous and it's intentional. That damn thing's like swinging in the room like this, like it's no big deal.
Well, that's the thing, is that when he says, like, when he's trying to talk him into voluntarily doing it,
he's like, horse dick.
You'll get a huge dick.
You get a horse dick.
And that is, you're right that it's intentional, but it's also because this is another metaphor for the slavery of black people. And we find that, and if that wasn't subtle, if that was too subtle for you, in the next scene when Cash is freaking out trying to figure out if he's been infected with it, he says they've got wide nostrils and big dicks, and it's like,
just here,
that is every racist.
Let's just hand it to you, like it's right there.
Yeah,
they got wide nostrils and big dicks, and he keeps asking Detroit to check his dick after they've broken up. He's like, no. Look at it. She's like, it looks the same size to me. And then when they're outside, are my nostrils big? You're flaring them. I'm not flaring them. And she's like, up here, look at this shit.
So one of the things that I really liked about this part is the metaphor becomes not remotely subtle, but then this whole other level starts taking on underneath that. So we've got the horse people and all of that, and we start to see where it becomes, I wouldn't say subtle, but like more subtle, and more next layer is Cash all of a sudden is concerned when it affects him.
Yeah.
And she, kind of says that to him. She's like, yeah, but what it does nicely is it says like, you kind of like got back on the right side for the wrong reason, but we're glad you're back, essentially, because his friends forgive him. He doesn't eat shit, but he literally goes to that part is great too, where he goes on the show.
I got the shit kicked out of me.
Let's beat the shit out of you.
I got the shit kicked out of me.
I got the shit kicked out of me. And then he's like, I agreed to be on your show.
Show the clip.
You played this video that I have. And so he gets the shit kicked out of him, and then he gets dumped in what they call the shit trough or something. So he's literally covered in shit, and he's like, play the clip.
And it's just his eyes.
The clip of the horse people crying to be released from, to be killed. And then, and Steve Lift is in the video saying, you beautiful monstrosities.
I'll turn you into glue.
I'll turn you into glue. And so we see him like literally like not eating shit, but
being
like
covered
you
in
know,
it just to make his point.
be well, and also to like to as a as a like when you eat shit to like
Oh
apologize,
yeah,
or
yeah,
like
yeah.
that
Yep.
metaphorically. And then it gets another level where the next, he's watching TV and they're like, the stock shot up as soon as everybody found out about the horse people, and people are loving it. And it's like, oh, because realistically, you got people rolling coal in the middle of the
Mm-hmm.
country, even though we've got climate
Yep.
change going on, because because people don't recognize any consequence that doesn't come to themselves
Yeah.
specifically. And so there's so many layers working, and I thought that it was great. They do like the visual matches that the whole time through, the audio of the voices and all that, and it's everything's working on all those levels. There are subtleties, and then there are not
Yeah.
subtleties, and which is great. I never would have thought to okay, we'll beat you over the head with this part, and then we will add the subtlety in to show Cash ends up being on the right side. Cash ends up doing
True.
something good. Cash still, spoiler alert again, if you're here, you shouldn't be. Cash turns into a horse person,
As the
and
literal last
and that
scene.
was one of the things.
Like, there's not even 3
And
minutes
that
of
was one of
movie after that. And yeah.
right. And the fact that Steve Lift wanted Cash to become a horse person so that he could be the Malcolm
He even
X of
said
horse
that.
people. No, not Malcolm
The
X.
Martin
The
Luther King,
Martin
I
Luther
love that.
King
I was
of
like,
horse people.
holy shit, that's
So that
obvious. Like, that was so.
yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But it was like, yeah, they would do that now. Like I could absolutely see that. And like it
Like,
just and again, you're hitting capitalism as a
yeah.
ideological evil, and you're hitting racism slash slavery in the sense that but again, one of the people that is there are white people on the picket lines. There are white people who are going, we see in the ads for the
Worry free. Yeah.
the prison, we see like worry free, happy white people being like, oh, it's like their version of Cribs. And
Oh.
he's like, yeah, and they're like in there's so many. It's so layered. It's a movie that I will say benefits from
It does.
multiple watches. Now that I've watched it a second time, I'm like, oh yeah, no, this is great. So okay, what do we think that this movie got right? I personally think that it got that balance. Like we said, the whole movie's about the whole movie features discordant notes and stuff. So you've got that like audio of everybody talking naturally, and then all of a sudden the few black people go into white voice, and then so that like really like is like, oh, that takes us out of it. And so that is working visually, audio, but then story wise, like I said earlier with you've got the like beating you over the head with it, and then you've got the subtlety underneath that is that the same level of everything is double, everything is kind of split, right? And I think that that's on purpose, and I think it works really well.
Yeah.
What could have been improved? Well, yeah, you said yeah. So, but is there anything else that you think works really well in the movie?
So what else works well is for editing wise, I feel that for an audience that's a film audience, and you touched on it, we can go into we can go more in depth to specific beats that we saw or specific symbolism that we saw. But then folks that are a little less scrupulous or detail oriented, they will still understand the point that Boots wanted for the film without needing to have it, like, it's not sitting on your face obvious, but it's hovering right there. And if even for a moment you're going to figure it out, even if you're not a film person. So the editing didn't make you need to understand film and be a film nerd to get the point, but it's not like you're watching Roots,
Right.
where or Malcolm X, where it is so obvious that that's what's going on. And I really think that the opening the opening kind of seconds don't, I don't know, the opening parts of the film could have been a little more obvious and set it up, but then when you have a film that's got this much of a trajectory, if you show too much, it's done.
Yeah.
And what, like the white voice in the trailer, good choice.
Yeah.
But
And
anything too
it's
much
a
about
hook.
worry free would have been too much, you know?
Yes. So my downside would be that, and ultimately, like, it would, okay, my downside is that if you stumble upon this movie, if you're not primed to watch a movie like this, you know, whether it's you're not as anti-capitalist as some of us, or you're not as anti-racist as some of us, um or even if you're, you know, let's say you're like a, you know, a person who doesn't like racism, who thinks, you know, late stage capitalism has gone too far, uh the there is a, like, ability to write off a lot of the non-subtleties of this movie. Like, you know, we say that, like, the Star Wars thing, like, oh, those people would be rooting for the Empire, right? But in this, it
Order
would
66 was necessary.
it would seem so absurd that, like, yes, they'll get the metaphor, but they may not think that it's that dire as compared to this movie. Whereas
Yeah.
the Empire, they don't get the metaphor sometimes, right? But with the, you know, the Empire being the U.S. and the rebels being the Viet Cong, like, that was that George Lucas has been talking about that for 40 years, right? But
Yeah.
like, but with this, for, you know, like, you're gonna get the metaphor, you just might be like, well, that's heavy, it's heavy handed, and, like, I don't think they're ever gonna turn people into horses, and we're not gonna return to slavery. I mean, you know, like,
Yeah,
and
and saying it that way too, like we would no, it
it,
wouldn't get that crazy. We're not going to round up people that we don't agree with.
right,
We're not
right,
going
it's
to make a scapegoat for all the
right,
problems that has nothing to do with the problem. Like,
right, and
yeah,
that's like a downside of the movie, as far as, like, if it were to get, you know, if it were to stumble onto an to the screens of an audience that isn't primed for it. But
okay.
it would make it a different movie. I also think that there's plenty of movies that are that. So I'm not like,
Idiocracy. I mentioned it earlier. Like if you want a make fun of capitalism movie, Idiocracy is a better choice. This has, especially editing, this has some more obvious racial points that it makes.
yeah,
And like another piece editing wise that probably could have gone better is like the repetition in the mid shot in the mid space of the film. Like you could have had the call center scenes be a little shorter, and I worked in one of them for 10 years almost. So for me, so much of this I had seen before, experienced before, and personal connection to it. The black people that I worked with at my call center were 100% like the black people that worked at Regal View.
yeah.
But then at the same time, the way that the white people spoke to them, again, so much of it was so obvious that for me, it's like, okay, I get it. So like that mid-film repetition and like the protest party thing, that could have been trimmed up a little, but for some
I
audience
think
members, it had to be that little bit longer to set it in, to put the heels
I
in and make it obvious. It needs to be that long.
I also think that when you talk about those parts being realistic, that is important to ground, like you said, like, to ground people in, like, we're gonna go a weird spot. This shit really, like, I mean, I know that,
Okay.
like, there's a certain level of white deniability, or white people that will probably deny, that won't understand that side of the condescending part of it,
Yeah.
even though
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
may
Yeah.
do it.
Hmm.
They'll be like, I don't think people do that. And it's like, oh, anytime you say like, oh, I don't think black people should use the N-word, or why can't we all, why can't we just forget about race? Like, there are so many other ways in which we do it, but like they do
Yeah.
it in this movie in a way that I've absolutely probably been, I can think of moments when I've been guilty of it as a 20-year-old
Yeah.
roughly, where you're like, hey bro, how's it you're trying to be cool and trying to like
You're yeah, you're trying to assimilate into an urban culture of which you have no prominence
right.
and
And
no
and the
provocation.
way you're doing it is coming across as not only disingenuous, but like it's condescending. It is kind of like cringe or gross. It's it sometimes it comes from a good place, but it ends up being bad. Sometimes it is like in this
Yeah.
case when you see the managers kind of doing it, it's like we're going to send you on up and exploit you in a
Yep.
different way. Like, even
Oh,
the woman kind of being like, you look so
I
sexy.
was literally
Like
about to say in your pink
she's
shirt.
priming him.
Yep.
She's priming him to like walk into this thing that, he's not ready for.
Yeah. And also her costuming changing to something a little more sexualized for when she
Yeah.
takes him up in the elevator to the power caller floor, and how that elevator is gold adorned and has like an almost like comical light that shines on it in the lobby, but all the other
Yeah.
like people have to slum it on the regular floor, have to take the stairs. So, I
Mhm.
also didn't. I also only just now looked that Rosario Dawson, it's the elevator voice,
Yeah.
which I just saw that. I was like, oh shit, that works.
I
So,
will say that, so Detroit's white British voice uh, is Lily James, who played Pamela Anderson in the show a few years ago, but I don't remember her. I remember her using the British voice, but I don't remember her using a white voice in the movie. Like
oh, she had
when
two of
she's
them. Look at
did she?
that. Hold on. Was hers always British?
Well, she does the British voice when she's doing doing the presentation on stage, but that's the way she talks
Oh
in
yeah, yeah.
Thor.
Oh, okay,
Like
yeah.
that's the same exact accent she uses in Thor. So I just assumed, but they're saying that she had a white British voice, but yeah, and there was like a lot of interest, like the first Equisapien that shows up and like kicks ass and breaks him out of the truck. That's Forrest Whitaker. Um, yep. And
The Equisapiens almost they look like bad costumes, and I think that the art direction team and Boots wanted them to look a little like, they didn't want it to look
yeah,
smooth and obvious. They didn't want it to look like a person wearing a horse costume, but they also didn't want it to look like uh, I don't know, like animated. They're jarring. How about that? They
yeah,
are
yeah.
freaking jarring. There's and Cassius watching them push the truck back from where he's captured. He watches these Equisapiens just like beat down the police.
I thought that the truck was stuck on bodies. Is what
I
I
did
thought it
too.
was.
Yeah,
Like
when the
I thought it
wheels
rolled
started
over the
spinning, I
bodies
was
and
like,
couldn't get back off the bodies, and I
"Yep."
was like, oh shit, that's intense. And then the Equisapiens pushing it back. I also like what was I gonna say? Oh, I love when Detroit makes uh the statue of the horse people, and they're like, I wonder if it's a metaphor for how we in there, and she's like,
Yeah,
maybe the artist just meant it literally, and then it zooms out and you see the guy standing behind the horse and
fucking
he
the
literally
horse.
fucked a horse. Which honestly, that's the next logical step in this process. If you follow this, if this movie were to like, if you were to follow it, the storyline of this world out another 6 months to a year,
Yeah,
they're gonna be doing that because, like, again, with slavery, the idea with slavery was we're gonna bring them over, we're gonna bring slaves over and use them for work.
yeah,
But they became sexualized. The men, the women, they became sexualized
yeah.
in all kinds of different ways. So like even that is probably literal and like meant literally in the within the frame of the movie. She probably realizes like, Detroit probably is thinking like, yeah, well, this is what will happen. They will want, it'll be like a thing to like go fuck the horse people.
Yeah, and I really think that the edit, like you mentioned, with pulling that out slowly and being able to see, I guess that's Steve Lift. I mean, it looks kind of like him, the guy fucking the horse. Does it sort of look like
Yeah, it's
Steve
probably
Lift?
supposed to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed to be him, I think.
So the edit is brilliant at turning kind of the labor into a horror comedy,
Yeah,
but it stumbles when it explains a little too much or a little too long. And I'm saying that as like a film critic kind of person or more of an in tune movie person. I think
yeah,
more casual audiences will appreciate those more lengthy touches or more lengthy
yeah,
edits to try to make something a little more clear. For
yeah.
example,
I also
I,
think that there's a level of let's linger in discomfort.
oh no, there
And
is that. Like for her art installation, it's
yeah,
balloons filled with sheep's blood, bullet casings, and what was the third thing they threw at her?
cell phones, because
Cell
there
phones,
was
because the
metal in the
battery.
cell
Yep,
phones. Yeah, that are
mined in
mined in
Africa.
Africa.
That like I'm like, and you're throwing it at her while she does a British voice.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that
The
was
British voice is even like intentional as like an imperial
it's
like
aristocracy kind of,
colonization.
yeah.
Well, colonization too, and like forcing the language upon the
Yeah,
people.
and that's what I mean. Like it's an upper crust British voice. It's not a commoner's British voice. You know?
Yeah, I don't know that I have a hot take on this movie. Like, I I think that okay. Here's my hot take because I have said several times that you should not watch this movie with uh, any like knowledge going
Okay, yeah,
in.
yeah.
And then I also said that if you stumble upon it without being primed, and I think that that's like kind of like you need to be primed socially,
Yeah,
but I think that you should be 0% primed specifically for this movie. Like if this movie shares your politics or is like sharing a
the
sense
politics
of your
isn't that
politics in
strong. What I mean
no
is I don't think that you watch this and you feel like you're watching something about Charlie Kirk getting killed, or you're watching something
no
about ICE rounding up people, or like it isn't governmental politic uncomfortable. It's
no
specifically greed capitalist uncomfortable. So I don't think this film hit any
right.
different in 2018 than it does now.
Right, right. But what I mean is like if you're primed in the political sense of like you're disenfranchised with capitalism, you are upset about racial inequity still, you're primed in those ways. There's almost no way that you're as extreme as this movie because it's absurdism,
Yeah.
right? It's like absurdist
Hmm.
satire, and so you can't be, but like if you are in, like we think about that vector scope when I'm doing the colors, like if you're like towards this, you're heading towards this direction, but you might only be here and the movie is like here, as long as you're in that,
The
you on
cone.
that road
Yeah.
essentially, then you're gonna like the movie. That's where I
Yeah.
think,
And like,
or appreciate the movie.
true, I'd appreciate it. And like the third act goes a little wild. It could be reined in a little more. And
Oh, I,
eh,
I don't
I don't
agree.
like when I mean reined in. I don't mean reined in as less wild. I mean more focused. That's more what
Yeah,
I mean. Is that is where maybe a film nerd appreciates it more, and a writer and maybe a casual audience goes a little off and just thinks it's so absurd. What the hell's going on? And
yeah,
I personally, my criticism is of Squeeze because his character comes off as like someone trying to do espionage, or someone almost trying to serve worry free, because he seems like an agitator sort of, but then it's obvious he isn't. But even by the end, his character is so it has so little about his backstory that I questioned it until he obviously organized a union. Like at that point, I was like, okay, I get it. You're just a
I think
disenfranchised person. It felt a little loose at first for me.
Squeeze is a metaphor for there's people who don't have the same stake in it. So like for like white
So
allies
he's
or
Asian, but he's not white.
well,
Ah,
I think that that's like a part of it.
okay.
Asians have had a much different experience in a lot of
But
ways than
it's
black
not a
people.
white experience.
But I also think that like he's a union organizer. So like yeah, he has an interest in it, but like the people that you go organize, it's their lives. For you, it's a job to go help them. It's maybe I wouldn't say a hobby because he's but like to go do this thing it's your charity work essentially in some and so
Okay.
for you at the end of the day, you can go pick a different line of work. There's other things for you. This isn't like life or death for you, where it is for the people that you're going
Okay.
to work with. And so I think that like you didn't have to cast him as an Asian man. I just think casting him as not a black person was the big thing,
Okay.
because there's the racial side of things. There is that capitalist side of things too, where it's like there is because capital and race do go hand in hand.
Yes.
We hear a lot of times people who are defending racial inequities saying like it's actually a class problem, and it's like, okay, because class, which is part of economics,
Is
and
directly tied
race
to race.
are are and always have been, at least as far as the history of
The
the
US. Yeah.
US. Like I would argue like all of the last 2 millennia at least. I don't know how race and and stuff worked pre, you know, European
Oh, okay.
society when it was, but or before races started meeting each other essentially, because I know that they have in the north of Africa and stuff, but like when the Norse didn't know anything about some of that
It's
shit, I
true.
would think, but like, so anyway, that's the point being like I think that Steve Yeun, what's his name, Squiggly,
Squeeze.
something weird. Squeeze. I was like, it's the SQ. I can't remember. Squeeze is, I think he's the metaphor for like somebody who will move on afterward. Like I kind of got the feeling like once they got everything together, he's like, well, I'm going off to the next, the next frontier of
And
this,
that's why it
and so
felt
like
like a plant. He did feel
right,
intentional, like he wanted to do
you
the right
should be
thing.
suspicious,
I was suspicious the entire time until they went to the bar
and
and
that's on purpose. I
I
think,
know.
yeah, and like I would get it if if a white guy shows up to Black Lives Matter and it's all black people and one white guy shows up, there should be a level of suspicion, unfortunately, because you don't know if that guy is there to agitate or what he's there for. You don't, he's the outsider and he's the person who doesn't have the same vested
Yeah.
interest the way that you do. And I think that that's why this structure, it was an important piece of the
Yeah.
puzzle, just like having Omari Hardwick as the guy who's kind of most complacent in the slavery, be a black person. Like these are all like layers of like capitalism is gonna come at you from 10 different ways. Racism's gonna come at you 10 different ways. And so like we're not going to ignore any of them in this movie. We're going to kind of try to pick them
No,
each.
and I really think that even the changes in Cassius as time goes on, like
Yeah.
and even like, okay, one of my favorite I know we're not in a section, but one of my favorite like editing hits was how aggressive he would get dropped in when he would be on the phone calls, literally dropped into a scene.
Yeah.
And then later on, like when he was talking to the Asian guy while he was taking a shit, and then he reaches over and turns on the bidet for him. Like even that is
Yeah.
so much more delicate and conversational. You even see his character, his new house that's no longer the garage in Terry Cruz's house. Like you even
Yeah.
have that kind of changing his appearance, and even though
Yeah.
it looks like a tiny-ish apartment, it's now on a higher floor. He has a corner window.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the street outside.
Yeah.
Like it's obvious he's not in like an Oakland suburb
Yeah.
anymore.
Right. Well, when we talk about him, the being dropped in scenes, the way I read those is you're in your office, your cubicle, and you have this illusion of familiarity and closeness, and at first, like, it's very jarring because he's getting rejected and they're not accepting him. Once they start accepting him, we don't have the jarring jumps. We don't have him literally getting dropped in. We just see him with, sitting at his chair, like not across, like knees intertwined,
with the guy on the toilet
while the guy is pooping, but they're having this intimate discussion, and they're like, he's on the toilet, and they're face to face, and but ultimately, like, it's fake. It's fake because he's back in his cubicle or in that point he's in his office
because he's a power caller,
office,
or the same thing when he's talking to the white guy while they're sharing a spliff. Like they're passing it back and forth with each other, and he's like, "Yeah, man." And then she's gonna look over on your bookshelf, and she's gonna see those leather bound, like it. Score.
Yeah.
It's so, and I think they even dab each other at the end. He's like, "Yeah, man." Like it is such black culture appropriation by a white guy. And also, I don't know if this was intentional, but I felt it was. Lakeith Stanfield almost never stands up straight the entire film. He is almost always hunched over just a little. And in the other films I've seen him in, he doesn't have that same body language. So I even think that was intentional because he was always kind of not cowering, but always sort of like not holding himself up with as much intention. Even when he went power caller, the only time when you see him like really showing a lot of bravado is in the scenes where he's on his own. Even when he's talking to Detroit, even when he's talking to Squeeze, even when he's talking to his friend, he's always kind of. And then when he's reading that, the only time I remember really seeing him stand up is when he's reading the power caller manual. That is the most call center schlock bullshit that I remember handing out when I worked in one. And it's just, be awesome, do this, you're gonna succeed, woo! And it's so thinly veiled dumb. But Cassius sees how much money he's getting offered and doesn't care that he's about to drop bombs on people. Doesn't matter. He could be working at Palantir just as easily in this film. And it would have hit the same way.
Do we recommend this film?
Of the four, I think it's the one that most people can watch and enjoy. No matter the race, no matter the understanding of film.
That should have been in your hot takes. I like this movie. I think that this movie is not for everybody. I think that, like, you're going to meet my friend Kim when we do our Best Picture episode. And the year this came out, I kept hoping it would get nominated because I think that, like, Kim would kind of hate this movie, but she would have such a funny rant about it. She would hate it just because she doesn't like weird shit, right?
The weird kept you separated from how... the weird keeps you out of the gravitas of what you're watching. It's the reason Idiocracy is good because you're laughing at how insane it is.
Yeah, it's the sugar that the
Which is
medicine goes
why
downward.
I think this is
Yeah.
easier to understand for more casual audiences, therefore, more than Malcolm X or Sinners. Okay, Sinners was a lot of fun. Honestly, Sinners was fun.
Sinners was a lot of fun.
This is more
I think
fun
Sinners is the most
to me because it's just wild.
Oh, I don't know. We'll see in a second when we get to ratings, but I definitely recommend this movie. If at this point, if you're watching me recommend this movie, you should have already seen the movie. Unless you jumped ahead, which okay, if you have, if you know, no spoilers at this part, but if you have, you know, we do recommend. But I will say, like, go in blind. Yeah. And I will say that there's a 50-50 chance you're not going to like it. But I
true.
really liked it. Okay, so let's go to ratings.
So you hit first.
Sure. For fun and watchability, I gave it a 7. I think it has a lot of fun, but there is so much like cringe and discomfort that I couldn't give it a higher rating than that. Like, I know that you've talked the last couple weeks about like being a white person watching the last couple movies and where the white guys were the villains, making you uncomfortable. That doesn't make me uncomfortable. What made me uncomfortable with this movie was so many other things. And so, like, I'm hard-pressed to give this higher than a 7 on fun and watchability. Doesn't mean it's not worth watching. Also doesn't mean that if I rewatched it, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
If I rewatched it a third time now, I might not, have a different rating even. But this isn't like a good time in that way. Like, this isn't the Muppet
Which
Christmas
shall not be
Carol
dethroned.
or Ratatouille or Sinners. Even like Sinners to me is very fun.
So okay, and my fun and watchability is an 8. Here's why. Sinners is fun because it's got a lot of music, it's got fantastic costuming and set pieces, and Sinners racial information is so obviously old that nobody watching it, this white guy, sees it as like threatening or mean or weird or uncomfortable. Malcolm X, I can see that and think, oh, okay, yeah, I see what you mean. Sorry to Bother You is so wild that because the bigger villain here is capitalism, not necessarily white people. So yeah, it was a little easier for me because of the racial divide to understand it and enjoy it. Whereas in the other films, they're a little more difficult for me to think, oh boy, oh God, like kind of situation. It feels a little different.
Yeah. That kind of discomfort is a discomfort that I've never minded sitting in.
Yeah.
This is more like nails on a chalkboard in some of the moments, or like watching a real close like vein puncture. Like this is like this is discomfort the way that, like, did you watch The Substance last year? Okay, The Substance was uncomfortable during the transformation. Like, it's just some body horror essentially, like that kind of discomfort for me. And whereas like the vampire scenes weren't that for me in Sinners. So, and okay, so on to our quality ratings. I gave it an 8. I think when you think about the fact that this is a directorial debut and how layered the script and everything
I agree
else
with that
is,
entirely.
It is hard to go lower than an 8. I think that this, like, I think that it absolutely deserves at least an 8. I think that there is some stuff that could be fine tuned in a bunch of different ways. You've kind of like mentioned. I also think like the body horror isn't the best done for me. So I didn't want to give it like a 9 or a 10. I really want to see. I will say this to our audience. We decided on Sorry to Bother You as one of our movies, and then like the next day they dropped the trailer for Boots Riley's second film, and I was like, oh, I want to see it. And it's called I Love Boosters, and I want to see that. And I think that like that's one of the ones maybe we go see in theaters together and we do an episode on. Like, especially considering how specific this movie is, right? But he also has a TV show that I haven't seen. But yeah, no, given all that, I just was like, oh, this is an 8.
So I'm the same. It's also an 8 for quality, and I'm gonna pull back on the body horror. Hear me on this. It was intentional to look that stupid and weird.
I yeah,
I don't think it was a quality knock. I think it's an 8 and not a 10 because it's a directorial debut, and this is me speaking from a behind the camera because it's usually been what I have had roles in. This is a rough style to choose for your directorial debut because it is wild, satirical, sarcastic. It's not a comedy. It's not. Oh God! It's not a comedy. It's not a
I would argue
documentary.
it is a comedy, but
No, what I
it's not like Dumb and Dumber.
yeah, sorry, it's not a chuckle fuck comedy. It's a genuine comedy.
Yeah.
So for me, like Boots chose a pretty polarizing thing to make his debut. And I respect that he did that because as a filmmaker, that's a risk. Usually, if your debut, you would want it to be an art piece or you'd want it to be a doco film. You'd pick something safer so you know you're not going to polarize audiences. Boots said, nah, fuck it, weird shit. And that's why it's an 8. And I respect the decision, but I'm not going to give it a 10 because this style is rough by nature and by intention. Yeah. So I didn't get to see his bigger ability in blocking, production. Writing's probably the strongest part of this. To me, writing is the strongest part of this because the film stuff can be so weird and fun. And those are old school film techniques, like the back wall of Cassius' apartment being the garage door. Like that was this interesting thing that was like old school film craft work. And I loved that. And that's why it's not a 10 because I didn't get to see Boots be crazy artistic because the genre is a little rough by intention. That's why it's an 8. And I agree with Mike on the overall rating, which gave us a 7.5 average for fun and watchability, obviously an 8 quality, which puts it quite a bit below our other films so far. So it's a 50.5. So it's the lowest of the 3 we've watched for Black History Month, but that in no way shows that you shouldn't see it in comparison to the others if you can do all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And like, look at, 15.5 is over the last month is one of the weakest scores, but 15.5 is probably about average for what we've watched.
Well, think of it this way: you got
months.
Grinch was the same rating. You've got Conformist only a point below that, and I would recommend The Conformist to so many people, despite it is very different type of film. And then you've got like considerably better Chocolat, only a point higher, right? The last film that Johnny Depp was normal in. Mike Cole 2025, the last film that he was normal in. Stranger Than Fiction. Right, sorry, wrong song.
No, that's Will Ferrell. That we will not be watching for Black History Month. We're watching American Fiction next week. It's a year old, 2 years old, something like that. And we'll be watching that with I'm excited to see it. I have not seen it yet. It's actually the only one this month that I haven't seen yet.
Same.
And so that's kind of cool. As for next month, let's talk about next month real quick for our audience. We have not entirely decided what we want to do for March. We were thinking, and I think we could let you guys decide. We're thinking about picking 4 directors, big name directors, and doing either their lowest rated or their most underrated films. So to give you some examples of things we found, in lowest rated for like Scorsese, it's Boxcar Bertha. Spielberg is 1941. Soderbergh is The Girlfriend Experience, which I am not interested in watching. I've seen it already,
Well,
and it
so
wasn't
hold on.
good.
For that one, you're the only one that picked that. We did pick Alien 3 as Fincher's worst or lowest rated. So we
Yeah.
agreed on Boxcar
Oh no.
Bertha, we agreed on 1941, and we agreed on Alien 3. You're the only one that did Soderbergh Girlfriend
Okay.
Experience.
No. I'm just
Oh,
listing the
sorry.
movies that I had put on there in case anybody wants to vote on what they think we should pick. Now we're gonna do one or the other as far as most underrated or lowest rated. We're not gonna switch back and forth, so keep that in mind. So I was just reading, for Paul Thomas Anderson, it's Inherent Vice. David Fincher's Alien 3. Linklater is It's Impossible to Learn to Plow by Reading Books, which I had never even heard of. Coppola's Jack. David Lynch's Dune. We got Fincher again. Shyamalan is Last Airbender. If we look at most underrated for those same directors, Scorsese is Bringing Out the Dead, which sound like, from everything I've heard, is a more interesting film. Like, it's going to be a more rewarding experience for us to do most underrated.
Yeah, that is true.
I think. Spielberg, Empire of the Sun, or Duel, they were kind of tied on what I could find, because underrated, it doesn't have a clear rating system, right?
Or you'd have to pick one
Whereas
and go
lowest
with
rated,
it.
you
Yeah.
could just get lowest rated. But Soderbergh, Solaris, Guy Ritchie, Rock and Rolla, Danny Boyle, Sunshine. I think I vetoed that one because I've seen it, and it's both lowest
I put
rated
it for
and
lowest
underrated.
and under.
So is Paul Thomas Anderson. Inherent Vice is both. I'm down for that one, especially considering he might be winning Best Director.
He very well
next
could,
month. Like, he's I think he's the favorite still to win. The Game from David Fincher, I've always heard is really good. I'm really interested in watching. But then we get into Coppola, Rumblefish, Linklater, Suburbia. I don't care as much about the bottom half of that list. So if any of these stand out, shout them out in the comments. And then if we'll pick either based on, and if you have something else that you want to suggest, say another big director. I tried to pick directors who had at least 10 films.
Yeah, I want them to have a big enough catalog so that we can maybe get the same person for both of them. But also, it's a director that folks understand the cachet of, and then going into our discussion, it's going to hit why it is what it is. So,
yeah. So that's why I didn't pick like Tarantino.
Yeah, I don't want to do Coppola others, personally, because he is one of my top directors. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that they can't make underrated or lowest rated films, obviously.
I don't hate Jack, which is his lowest rated, but you and I grew up. We were 12 when I was 12, you were 13 when that movie came out. Yeah. I liked that movie. It's Robin Williams. I have no interest in watching Rumblefish. So
yeah, I don't really want to watch Rumblefish
anyway, thank
either.
you very much. Thank you very much for watching this week. Please let us know in the comments what you want us to do next month. Like and subscribe. That would be helpful. If you want to catch these episodes early, you can go on to our Patreon, which I'll put down. We get the whole year's worth early for $26. And you can't watch the whole year now, but you can watch it as soon as I'm done editing every episode. So you'll have updates. There's a $26 collection. That's 50 cents per episode at least.
Yeah.
Because we also have we have a couple bonus episodes potentially. So